I come out to spend the day in the woods, and I just finished my lunch, and now it's time for coffee. But I'm going to do something a little different today. Today, I'm going to make bulletproof coffee. If you're interested in finding out what bulletproof coffee is and how it's made, keep watching. So what is bulletproof coffee and how do you make it? Well, let's start with describing bulletproof coffee and why it might be something that you'd be interested in trying out for yourself. So bulletproof coffee at its very basic is basically coffee and butter. And I know that doesn't sound too appetizing. It certainly didn't to me. And I'll tell you my experiences when I first started out. There are some interesting and fun urban legends on how bulletproof coffee was created. The one I like the most, the one I think is less likely to be the real one, is it started with a Silicon Valley software developer going on a spiritual journey in the Himalayan mountains and finding himself lost in a snowstorm, only to wake up in a Tibetan monastery where the monks had created this fabulous drink made of coffee and butter, and he accredits it not only with saving his life, but by creating a spiritual awakening. Take it for what it's worth. That's one of the stories that's out there. But it's just simply coffee and butter. Now, there is a method for combining the two, which I'll talk about in a minute, but why would you even want to bother putting coffee and butter together? Well, coffee by itself is restorative in the sense that it will perk you up. The caffeine has, the ability to stimulate your system a little bit and sharpen your focus and everything else. That's why we drink coffee, is it not? But butter has a similar characteristic, works differently, but it has a similar characteristic. Butter being a fat, very, clever, Mark. Butter is a fat, but fat is a pure form of energy that the body does not have to do a whole lot with in order to process it and turn it into something the muscles and the brain can use. It has to be broken down into what's known as ketones, but once it is, it'll fuel the body for a lot longer than any carbohydrate. You cannot compare rice or pasta, potatoes or bread or anything else with a whole fat, a good quality healthy fat. Is butter healthy? Well, it depends. It's if your body has adapted to using butter and you're not loading it up with carbohydrates, like butter on top of potatoes is bad. Potatoes can be bad. Well, that's a whole other story about carbohydrates, and we're not going to get into that with this video. But butter by itself is a great source of energy. Now, I keep saying butter because you cannot use margarine for this. You have to use butter. And the best butter you can buy, the better the product will be. So the recipe for bulletproof coffee is simple. Make some coffee, add some butter, and if you want, and this is a modern twist on things, add some MCT oil. Mark, what is MCT oil? Well, I'm going to let you look it up to get the best description, but basically it stands for medium chain triglycerides, which is a simplified form of fat that is healthy for you, and it breaks down the quickest into ketones, and it will wake your brain up like nothing else will. So it's a flavorless oil that is most often than not processed out of coconut oil, but leaves behind all of the solid parts that coconut oil has in it. So it's a liquid oil, and there are variations of it that are powdered. But if you add butter and MCT to your coffee, then you'll produce bulletproof coffee. Okay, it's not as simple as just putting butter on top of your coffee and stirring. I tried that, and all that happens is the butter melts and floats to the top. You have to emulsify it. If you really want to enjoy it, you have to emulsify it. What does that mean? Emulsifying is a means of just adding the coffee and the butter together, usually through some type of, blenders. People use blenders at home and they really froth it up, and I guess that's the best way to describe it. Actually, even better, I'll demonstrate in a second. So if you can somehow take your oil, your butter, and your coffee and emulsify them, then you'll create bulletproof coffee. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to take you down to the ground here where I've got my mini kitchen set up, and we'll produce some bulletproof coffee. All right, let's make some bulletproof coffee. So first thing I need is some means of making coffee. And today I brought out my Stanley Adventure Cook Kit for this. I'm just putting it inside my eating plate just so I don't dirty up my little pad too much. Of course, you're going to need some coffee. My favorite coffee, Rampage, yeah, without question, Rampage coffee. And I have quite a few videos where I've been using some Rampage coffee. I'll put some links in the show notes below, so if you want to check out Rampage coffee. Today I'm going to be using their dark roast, Code Black. And you can see I've got it ground, hopefully you can see that, a little rougher or a little coarser than you might for a drip or a filter. And that's because I'm going to be using this as a French press. I'm putting in 5 scoops because I have 2 cups of water in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scoops. Give that a stir. Oh, it smells wonderful already. Now, since it's in a French press, it's best to leave that sit for about 4 or 5 minutes before we plunger it down. The fact that I'm using a bit coarser coffee means I can leave it a little longer without having to worry about it getting bitter. And the next step, which I will come back for in a moment, will be to drain the coffee off into my cup, which is sitting right here, and then I'll transfer the lid over. The reason being is I need to clean out the French, or the Stanley Adventure, which is my French press in this case, because I need to use it. I'm going to be putting the coffee back in with the other ingredients so that I can actually use the French press portion, the piston, as the emulsifier. So I'll come back when I'm ready to press that, and or actually I'll just come back once we've got the coffee transferred, the pot cleaned out, and we're ready to add the other ingredients to the coffee. Okay, so I pressed my coffee, transferred it into my cup, cleaned out the coffee maker. Now I'll transfer the coffee back into the Stanley Adventure and add my ingredients. So today I am going to be adding the MCT oil. I just put a little bit in this container. That goes in directly. Ratios, I guess there's no set ratio. What I've seen recommended is 1 tablespoon of butter or 1 tablespoon of oil and 1 tablespoon of oil to each cup, 250 mils, 1 cup of coffee. But you can vary that. That's about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, because I have a little, actually I will add just a little bit more there. About a tablespoon and a half to that. Now, this is ghee, by the way. Ghee is clarified butter. It's a lot more stable out in the woods. It doesn't go quite as runny. It doesn't need refrigeration. You know, and when it gets really hot, it will get quite liquid. But right now, it's still pretty soft. And I'll show you, try and show you anyway. The coffee or the butter is melting inside of the coffee. Now, it's not just plungering. It's actually really agitating the coffee to make this work. And that's hot. So do be careful when you do this. You don't burn yourself. That's getting hotter. All right, I need something to hold around the outside. So, as I mentioned before, just putting the oil and the butter and the coffee, it just floats on top. But by doing this, you're emulsifying everything and you're creating a real frothy coffee. That was a little bit messy, but there is my Bulletproof coffee. So what does Bulletproof coffee taste like? Well, I'll tell you, coming from a point of view of someone who drinks coffee black all the time, my first coffee in the morning is black. Most of the time I drink black coffee. It was a bit of a change for me. It was a lot like drinking coffee with cream in it. Not milk, but cream, because it's a lot heavier than just simple milk is. But I've actually come to enjoy it. Is it buttery in flavor? A little bit, yes, it is. But when you think of it, butter is derived from cream, so it's not that far off from using a heavy cream in your coffee. So if you like milk with coffee, or coffee with milk in it, maybe you like your milk with a little coffee in it. But either way, if you like coffee and milk or coffee and cream, then the adjustment to enjoying this would be very, very small. For me, for someone who drank it black, I wouldn't say it took getting used to. It was just different than what I was used to. But I will tell you this, in the middle of the afternoon when I haven't had anything to eat all afternoon, if I make myself a cup of Bulletproof coffee Not only does it wake me up, the coffee by itself, of course, would do that, but I'm energized and able to focus right through to supper time without any problems whatsoever. There's no pick me up and drop me. It works much better than just coffee alone would have. And it's quite tasty. I'm actually starting to really enjoy the flavor of this. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you. What I would like to do now is ask you, have you ever had Bulletproof coffee? Do you enjoy Bulletproof coffee? Have you ever made Bulletproof coffee in the woods? I did say you need some type of a device for emulsifying the oils, the fat and the oil together with the coffee. I used a French press. What else could you use? What would you use if you went into the woods and wanted to make a cup of Bulletproof coffee? Any other comments are welcome as well, of course. And until next time, get out and explore and take that path less traveled, because it will make all the difference. Bye for now.